Let's revisit some of Vince McMahon's forgotten pranks and wacky antics. Eccentric is the word often used to describe the man we all have grown to know as the evil WWE villain Mr. McMahon. Love him or hate him, you can't deny that Vince McMahon is an out-and-out entertainer, or in his words, the man knows how to put a S in seats apostrophe. Nevertheless, as is the case with most geniuses, there are several crazy stories about Vince McMahon and his myriad of eccentricities. Most of these tales have indeed been corroborated by top professional wrestling personalities, including current or former WWE staff, performers, acquaintances, as well as Vince's close friends. Regardless, we hereby request the reader to take the following narration with a pinch of salt, what with the fact that most of the stories haven't really been confirmed or denied by the man himself. With that being said, let's look back at some of the craziest Vince McMahon stories. Number 5. Vince McMahon, Jonathan Coachman and the arrest. Vince McMahon is no stranger to betting, and this hilarious gambling tale goes back to the time Jonathan Coachman was one of the most well-connected personalities backstage in the WWE. The story goes that McMahon once had Coachman arrested for running an illegal gambling ring in the WWE. Now, although Coachman was indeed instrumental in making several rather generous bets backstage, the grounds for his long-term imprisonment after arrest simply weren't there. Nevertheless, that didn't stop Vince from playing a rather cruel prank on the coach, having the latter arrested by a few cops who were in on the prank. Apparently, they drove Coachman all the way to jail in the police cruiser, only to eventually make a U-turn and take him back to WWE headquarters. The incident is said to have caused Jonathan to lose his mind, go into a wild rage and weep uncontrollably in public. Let's revisit some of Vince McMahon's forgotten pranks and wacky antics. Number 4. Vince vs. sneezing. Ya ever lost your mind sneezing, laddie? Asked the elderly man sitting next to me on the cab ride back home. What an absurd question, I muttered to myself at the time. Well, I don't find this line of thought as obsolete anymore. Don't comprehend? No worries, just bear with me. Let's revisit a few statements Paul Heyman famously made on Chris Jericho's podcast, in reference to the WWE chairman's plethora of quirky tendencies. The Advocate revealed, speaking from experience, that Vince almost always lost his composure on the odd occasion, when someone happened to sneeze in front of him. According to Heyman, McMahon angrily orders the person in question to control himself. Besides, God forbid if Vince himself sneezes, he loses the ability to focus for the next few minutes, and simply mumbles inaudibly while seething in anger, since he failed to control the sneeze. Brock Lesnar's famous manager continued that if you find yourself in the midst of a business discussion with the WWE boss, and the latter sneezes, you'd better ease up on the talk since most of it isn't gonna get through to an angry Vince. Let's revisit some of Vince McMahon's forgotten pranks and wacky antics. Number 3. Did Mr. McMahon almost kill a man? Old-school WWE fans would probably remember this incident, which involved a car race between former WWE writer Court Bauer and Mr. McMahon. The story goes that Vince raced Bauer on an open highway, with both cars zooming forward at breathtakingly high speeds. We're talking Fast and Furious movie levels fast. As per Bauer's account in an appearance on the Wrestling Observer Radio, with both vehicles traveling neck to neck, McMahon cut off the former by gradually boxing him in toward the corner of the road, with an on-road under construction strip to that very side. Bauer continued that McMahon just wouldn't let up and almost drove him into the aforementioned construction site, which would have led to the former crashing his vehicle in a head-on collision, one that he probably wouldn't have survived. Thankfully, Bauer slowed down and let Vince go ahead, and win the race. Let's revisit some of Vince McMahon's forgotten pranks and wacky antics. Number 2. McMahon vs. McMahon. Let's face it, most of us who grew up in the Attitude Era loved the WrestleMania 16 matchup that had a McMahon in every corner. For those unaware, the fatal four-way elimination match for the WWF Championship saw Triple H with Stephanie McMahon vs. The Rock, with Vince McMahon vs. Mankind, with Linda McMahon vs. Big Show, with Shane McMahon. Well, That was a WWE storyline, but the following narration is as real as it gets. Vince was relaxing with his family at their holiday home when he teamed up with his wife Linda to take on Triple H and Stephanie at the pool table. It started off as nothing more than a jovial game of pool until his team began losing to Steph and Triple H. Apparently, Mr. McMahon was mad at Linda, who was causing him to lose, following which he flipped out and stormed away from the room. To make matters